Tonight, Russia attacks Ukraine.
There you go. Oh! That's a missile! That's a missile!
Explosions across the skyline. Tanks roll in over the border. Russia's invasion in full force. The declaration of war with an angry televised address. Almost immediately, the missile strikes began. As we go to air, reports of hundreds of casualties. The wave strikes the stock market. Immediate impact on petrol prices. Tonight, the Australian government condemns the assault but rules out sending troops. Also, damage control over the trains debacle. A new wave of flooding across our west. And cricket legend Rod Marsh suffers a major heart attack.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. A global peace is under threat tonight as Vladimir Putin triggers an invasion to reclaim what he describes as rightfully Russia's, the Republic of Ukraine. The operation began in just the past 3 hours. Russia's targets right now are in eastern Ukraine, but explosions have been heard in the capital. This photo was reportedly taken from the president's own office in Kiev. And these are live pictures from the Ukrainian capital, a city now very much on edge. The stark warning from inside the UN General Assembly tonight: this could be the end of world order as we know it.
Minutes before dawn, eastern Ukraine's sky starts glowing. It was 6 a.m. in Moscow. Vladimir Putin addressing his nation to declare Russia's special military operation had begun.
I've decided to conduct a special military operation. It aims to protect people who have been bullied and subjected to genocide by the Kiev regime.
The rant unfolded for over an hour, timed in unison with explosions in eastern Ukraine. And inside the holy grail of Putin's ambitions, the Ukrainian capital, Kiev.
Oh, I tell you what, I just heard a big bang right here behind me. I told you we shouldn't have done the live shot here. There are big explosions taking place in Kiev right now.
We will strive to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine and will bring to justice those who committed multiple bloody crimes against civilians, including Russian citizens.
A state of emergency is tonight being enforced in Ukraine. Curfews, military and citizens on alert for a call up to war.
Here in Lviv, the air raid sirens have just sounded. A loudspeaker announcement also telling people to go home, to go into their basements and take cover, to turn off their electricity and gas, to gather their documents and await further instructions.
US intelligence reports say Russia has nearly 100% of its forces it needs to invade. Here's where tanks and troops are targeting first. On the east of Ukraine, two territories already held by Russian rebels, Donetsk and Luhansk. The invasion is creeping into Ukrainian-controlled areas, Russia declaring its key target tonight, the area of Donbass. It's 800 kilometres from the capital Kiev. Shelling and explosions have also been heard in Mariupol, Dnipro City and Kharkiv. Knowing a new war was brewing, Vladimir Putin earlier paid tribute to the past. In the rain, weathering international sanctions, he laid a wreath before sending soldiers to a modern-day front line. Cyber attacks were already targeting Ukraine before gunfire rang out, and a late UN meeting in New York turned into an all-nighter.
The beginning of a large-scale war in Ukraine will be the end of the world order as we know it.
America predicted it was when, not if, Ukraine's president was preparing for the worst.
If they try to take our country, our freedom, our lives, we will defend ourselves.
Now he'll have no choice. In Lviv, Jeff Parry, 7 News.
And Jeff Parry is in the city of Lviv for us now, where air raid sirens have been sounding. Jeff, what's happening there now?
Mark, as the day unfolds, it's becoming very clear that this is not a focused invasion of Ukraine, as Vladimir Putin said at the start that they're only interested in the Donbass region. This is unfolding as a massive invasion of their neighbour. Just to bring you up to date on some of the latest military action, we have heard that there have tanks, Russian tanks, have crossed the Ukraine-Belarus border from the north of Kiev. There has been targeted cruise missile strikes on military establishments, particularly the military headquarters outside Kiev, and there has been a lot of fighting and explosions around a number of big cities across Ukraine. But Ukraine is fighting back. The Defence Ministry says that they have shot down 5 Russian jets and a Russian helicopter. A short time ago, Ukrainian President Zelensky addressed his countrymen. He said, and I'll quote him, he called for calm, and he said the army is working, the whole security and defence sector is working. Don't panic, we are strong. Despite that, there are long queues of cars trying to flee Kiev. There are long queues at petrol stations, and we're hearing that the roads out west to the Polish border are clogged with traffic. Mark?
In Lviv for us, thank you. Now to US Bureau Chief Ashley Mullaney in Washington, DC. Ashley, what has been the US reaction so far?
Good evening, Mark. President Joe Biden has vowed to hold Russia accountable for its attack on Ukraine. Moments after President Vladimir Putin announced this military action, President Biden released a statement describing it as unjustified and unprovoked. President Putin has chosen a premeditated war that will bring catastrophic loss of life and human suffering, the president said, warning of further consequences the United States and our allies and partners will impose on Russia. President Biden plans to meet with G7 leaders tomorrow and address the nation at noon. It's likely then we will learn what that punishment will be. He's made it clear he will not be putting American troops on the ground in Ukraine, so these will likely be further sanctions placed on Russia. Ukraine's President Zelensky has spoken to Joe Biden this evening. He did also try to speak to Vladimir Putin in the lead up to this assault, but that phone call to the Kremlin went unanswered. President Zelensky standing defiant tonight as his country comes under attack, and the world waits and holds its breath to see how far President Putin will take this. Mark?
Ashley Mullaney in Washington, thank you. While the conflict in Ukraine may seem a world away, the impact is already being felt here. The stock market has taken a hit, with pain at the petrol pump showing no sign of easing. Scott Morrison says while more sanctions are on the cards, Australian troops won't be deployed.
Having ruled out Australian boots on the ground, Scott Morrison fires back from the lip.
I'll call it what it is. The Russian government launched a brutal invasion, unprovoked, on Ukraine, and should be condemned for doing so.
Having earlier met Governor-General David Hurley,
Morning, Your Excellency,
signing sanctions into law now that the invasion is on, going further, widening the sanctions to cover all members of Russia's parliament, senior military leaders and 4 more financial institutions.
We must ensure there is a cost for this violent, unacceptable and egregious behaviour. There must be a cost.
Economic weapons, but no military involvement.
That's not under contemplation by Australia, never has been, never been requested.
Labor leader Anthony Albanese calling it a shameful act of aggression and a grave moment for humanity.
This is full-on war.
Security analyst Malcolm Davis says Australia should sever all trade with Russia, but agrees sending in troops isn't an option.
We are not going to deliberately go into essentially what would be a third world war.
Unpredictable, nuclear armed, a bully. Vladimir Putin's gambling on the West doing all it can to avoid the human cost of another world war, as his invasion extracts a financial cost, smashing our stock market. The ASX 200 plummeting almost 3%, down 207 points, falling below the 7,000 mark, wiping about $70 billion from the value of stocks in just a few hours. Analysts warning against panic.
I don't think it's time to panic, no. We might yet see further falls. Nobody knows what the short-term future brings. In the long term, I expect the market to keep its march higher.
As stocks dive, the price of petrol soars.
Unfortunately, pretty much every town and centre across the country are paying prices that we have never paid for before.
Regular unleaded as high as $2.06 a litre in Melbourne and going above $2 in most cities except Brisbane. Russia supplies 12% of the world's oil, but US President Joe Biden has promised to increase America's production to cover any supply dip forced by the conflict.
We don't believe that we're going to hit $2.50 a litre.
The cost of aggression.
This is a chilling reminder of the world that we live in.
A world now on edge.
And political editor Mark Riley is live in Canberra for us tonight. Mark, will Scott Morrison's actions have any real impact on Vladimir Putin?
Well, the experts say no, Mark, but Scott Morrison says it's essential for the West to maintain a united front of resistance to Vladimir Putin, and that is important for Australia to be part of that. He's defended the sanctions regime, which did nothing really to prevent the bombs from falling, and it says Australia and its allies will now press ahead with further measures, insisting they will have an impact, giving Putin and his cronies nowhere to run and nowhere to hide their assets. With the decision made not to go after the Russian leadership militarily, world leaders have decided to go after their wallets. Scott Morrison says Russia's ambassador won't be thrown out of Canberra here at this stage. He wants him near to maintain a direct line to Moscow for Australia's messages of disgust and condemnation.
Mark Riley in Canberra, thank you. As governments around the world respond to Russia's aggression, the British Prime Minister is already being accused of being too soft. At the centre of intrigue, rich and powerful Russian business leaders wielding huge political power. With London awash with so-called dirty money, uncomfortable questions are now being asked.
London, one of the world's wealthiest cities, but much of that wealth can be traced back to Moscow. London is a laundromat for dirty Russian money. It's even earned a nickname, Londongrad.
Are you going to toughen up sanctions, Prime Minister?
Yesterday's sanctions against Russia from British Prime Minister Boris Johnson have been widely criticised as ineffective.
They haven't even scratched the surface. The sanctions announced by Boris Johnson yesterday.
Former banker Bill Browder, a long-time campaigner against Russian corruption, says few cities have been as popular with Russia's oligarchs as London.
Because nobody asks any questions. British investigators, British government looks the other way.
Yesterday, assets were frozen for 5 banks and 3 Russian oligarchs. Boris Rottenberg, bank owner and former judo partner of President Vladimir Putin, worth $2.5 billion. His billionaire nephew, Igor Rottenberg, also close family ties with Putin. And Gennady Timchenko, hockey team owner and major shareholder of one of the now banned banks, worth $18 billion.
And you've got to ask, why just 3 oligarchs? And when there are 74,000 Russian people in our country, and we know that there's masses of dirty money here in London.
If not now, then when?
We squeeze them simultaneously in London, in Paris, in New York.
There is so much Russian cash awash here. At one stage, there were sightseeing tours around London called the Kleptocracy Tours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard the Kleptocracy Tour of London.
Pointing out the multi-million-dollar mansions where Putin's pals were living.
London really has become a playground for Russia's oligarchs, some going so far as to call it Moscow by the Thames. Here in upmarket Eaton Square, the locals call it Red Square. The money is pouring in, but adding to concern, some of that is now ending up as political donations.
Reports up to a quarter of Boris Johnson's cabinet has taken Russian-linked donations. Chris Reason, 7 News.
Breaking news, the anger over Russia's invasion of Ukraine is being felt in Sydney. These are live pictures of a protest underway in the city right now. Numbers are building after being called with just an hour's notice. To other news, and state MPs lined up to declare their vaccination status today after the opposition accused the government of having a bunch of anti-vaxxers within its ranks. At question time, the Speaker was forced to remind MPs they must be jabbed to attend Parliament or have a valid medical exemption.
Leading by example.
I have had my booster shot.
Triple vaccinated? Absolutely.
Double vaxxed and I've had the booster.
For some MPs, it is about health and principle.
People that are not vaccinated in Parliament are hypocritical, particularly given that we're making laws that will affect other people.
There is a cabal of anti-vaxxers within the New South Wales Liberal Party's parliamentary ranks.
When Liberal Mulgoa MP Tanya Davies was asked about her status earlier this month.
That's my personal information.
and I won't be disclosing that. Thank you.
All members of the Legislative Assembly are able to attend Parliament if they are either fully vaccinated or have a valid medical exemption.
7 News understands Ms Davies is medically exempt.
In terms of the issues that I'm dealing with every single day, that's well down the list.
Top of the list right now is getting trains moving again to get people back into maskless offices for work on Monday and to revive the CBD. Momentum is clearly building. The city's corporate hub is noticeably busier today than it has been in quite a while. For businesses that have had to pivot to survive, Monday cannot come soon enough.
The financial district up here at Chifley is returning, and the rest of the city generally follows suit.
I'm getting quite optimistic that we're going to see perhaps a 20% increase in the number of people coming in.
The government is devising a plan to get public servants back into buildings.
We need the city to be a place where people aren't forced to go to work. They want to go to work.
And just as people are returning to the city, they are returning to Australia too.
I'm sorry, I don't know this woman.
Little wonder, since Brian has not been able to fly in from the UK for 2 years to see his partner Irene as she underwent cancer treatments.
It's a bit cruel, I thought, but this is fantastic, so... Yeah.
She's better now.
Total relief.
Much better. Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
Clive Palmer has just checked out of a Queensland hospital tonight after arriving by ambulance earlier today and being tested for COVID. The United Australia Party chief is unvaccinated and has come under fire for spreading misinformation about COVID treatments. Mr Palmer has long had breathing problems and had to cancel a National Press Club address this week after he was unable to travel. The hunt is on for a driver who crashed into a house at Blacktown last night while trying to outrun police. The high-speed chase only lasted minutes, but it will now take homeowners weeks to repair the damage.
A sports car streaks past. Police in pursuit. Then the sound of the inevitable. On a wet road, the Mercedes misses the corner, ploughing through a fence and into a home.
Oh my God.
Police pull up in the garden and run to drag the driver from the smoking car, but he's already gone.
Heard a big boom and make the house move. When I come in out here, bloke was coming over the back fence.
Terry Jackson owns the house. The 68-year-old former soldier tried grabbing the man.
Big bloke. I've never seen a big bloke jump a fence so quickly.
Seen here running off through neighbouring yards and into a back street.
When he told me that the guy just creeped into your house, he jumped from the fence, I didn't go. Because I had children with me and you never know.
The chase began around 8:30 last night when police spotted the car speeding. They don't know who was driving, but had no reports of it being stolen before the crash. The damage to this house might not look like much from the outside, but the force of this impact has bent wall frames and shifted the entire structure off its foundations. A big damage bill and a driver still on the run.
I would have grabbed him on his belt and pulled him down and given him a hide.
Andrew Denny, 7 News.
Explosive new details have been revealed in State Parliament into just how long Monday's rail network shutdown was intended to last. It's heaped more pressure on a government already feeling the heat, the opposition doubling down on its calls that someone must pay.
An apology as late as the train.
I'm really glad they've got half prices if the trains have been stuffed up this week.
Sydney commuters set for half-price peak hour travel and free trips this weekend to compensate for the chaos of Monday's snap shutdown.
Is that good news?
Of course it is, yeah. Why wouldn't it be?
While commuters were blindsided, Fair Work Commission documents suggest the government shouldn't have been.
These documents prove that the government was planning this all along.
Despite not announcing the shutdown until early Monday morning, the papers show Sydney Trains had determined it was necessary last Thursday and was weighing up the suspension lasting not one day but a fortnight.
Is it really plausible that all of these people knew about a 2-week shutdown all over your government, but you personally had absolutely no idea?
They do assessments to address all contingencies. This isn't rocket science, this is government.
In another blow to the Premier, new polling shows the government was already on the wrong track with voters before this week's rail fiasco. Opposition leader Chris Minns has overtaken Dominic Perrottet as preferred premier, putting Labor in its strongest position since the landslide election loss of 2011. Amelia Brace, 7 News.
Torrential rain caused more chaos for Sydney commuters today. No ferries were running on Parramatta River due to flooding and debris. The river is at capacity with water pouring over Parramatta Weir, and nearby wharf is just above water. Minor flooding made driving risky on streets through Penrith. A flash flood warning remains in place throughout the city and across the entire Sydney basin. Less rain in the catchment area means there's no prospect of a spill over Warragamba Dam at this stage. Time to check the latest now, Angie. There was some reprieve for Sydney today.
There was, Mark. Generally under 10 millimetres across Sydney today, but in the 24 hours until 9 a.m, some more heavy falls in our suburbs. Little Bay picked up 85 millimetres, Rose Bay 65, Randwick recorded 64, 53 at the airport and 39 for Manly. So a brief break for the city today, but this weather system is still dominating conditions now. This is the current storm warning area in yellow. It is immense. Widespread falls of 100 millimetres plus already from the border with Queensland and down to Coffs Harbour. Now, the downpour over the last couple of days has led to Sydney recording its wettest summer in 30 years. More than half a metre of rain has been recorded over the past 3 months, and we will continue to add to that tally over the next few days. The full forecast soon, Mark.
OK, Angie, thank you. An Australian sporting legend in hospital after the break. Rod Marsh suffers a major heart attack as cricket greats rush to his side. Sisters in arms, two future queens, Mary and Kate, hit the streets of Copenhagen. A true one-off, the rare Holden Classic kept under wraps for decades. That's later. Last-minute tips, what you need to know before tonight's record Powerball jackpot. And a driver left hanging when a drawbridge suddenly opened. Welcome back. Cricketing legend Rod Marsh is in a Queensland hospital after suffering a major heart attack this morning. The 74-year-old, who played 96 tests for Australia, was in Bundaberg for a cricket match but became unwell when leaving the airport. Fellow test players Alan Border and Jimmy Marr are said to be by his bedside. A Sydney father has been sentenced to jail after chasing teenage car thieves who crashed, killing 2 of them. The youngsters were driving at up to 150 kilometres an hour, but a magistrate has condemned the man for going after them.
For Mazen Kabara, there is a common theme.
Do you feel hard done by from what happened last night?
Keen to avoid the media.
Are you upset about what happened?
And keen to avoid prison, walking out on bail as he fights a 21-month jail sentence. Punishment for a car chase which ended the lives of 2 teenage brothers at Abbotsbury. The sanctity of life is more important than the preservation of materials, the magistrate told him. Kabara had been trying to preserve and retrieve his Commodore, which had been stolen. The 39-year-old went after the teenagers with speeds reaching 150 kilometres an hour, going through red lights and screaming through intersections. The 12-kilometre chase concluded with the boys losing control and being thrown from the car. They weren't wearing seatbelts. For Kabara, his mind was blindly turned to the recovery of his car, and it significantly contributed to the deaths of 2 boys.
The court heard Mazen Kabara had 6 opportunities to pull out of the chase but refused to realise the situation he had put himself in. The magistrate said it was sheer luck he too wasn't killed in the pursuit.
He accepted the father of 4 is truly remorseful, but said he made a deliberate choice to drive, a choice which altered his life and many others. Leonie Ryan, 7 News.
The husband of cinematographer Helena Hutchins, who was shot dead when Alex Baldwin's gun fired, has broken his silence. Matt Hutchins, who is suing the actor, has told NBC he's so angry Baldwin refuses to take responsibility for the death of his wife on the set of Rust.
The idea that the person holding the gun causing it to discharge is not responsible is absurd to me. There's multiple responsible parties.
Baldwin has said, I feel someone is responsible, but I know it's not me. A driver in Palm Beach, Florida, who hesitated crossing a drawbridge got a real scare when the bridge began to open. It's not clear why he paused, but became stuck as the span rose and later was tipped forward with the back wheels jammed in the gap. The car was eventually driven away while the bridge operator was sacked. TV reporters know live shots can attract a crowd, but it's not often your mother rolls up.
I'm trying to work right now. You over there calling my phone. This is D'Angelo. You can say hi. And don't be holding up traffic because you got cars behind you.
That's Miles Harris from USABC and his proud mum Sandy. The video has gone viral. Thousands of workers in limbo, building sites abandoned. Up next, downing tools before the day's even begun. The sad end looms for a construction giant. The hunt for clumsy firebugs damaging shops and themselves. Western Sydney cash splash, the suburbs at the centre of a $5 billion spend.
And ahead in sport, the big goal Nathan Cleary needs to kick to show he's ready for the start of Penrith's title defence.
Welcome back. Thousands of tradies found themselves locked out of work sites this morning after one of Australia's biggest builders went into administration. ProBuild, which is behind the stunning W Hotel at Darling Harbour, has run into money problems, with its parent company partly blaming Australia's COVID crackdown.
Sydney's Ribbon project almost complete, but this morning builders couldn't even pick up a hammer.
Everyone go home.
Is it tools down for the moment? Do you know what's happening?
It is.
Yeah.
Sad day, but we'll get over it.
ProBuild has been a pillar of the Australian building industry.
It's not a good sign.
750 jobs on the line, thousands of subcontractors in the building wilderness. The company has unfinished projects in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne.
Regrettably, there's going to be contractors and individuals that are going to suffer.
ProBuild said it was caught up in circumstances not of our making. Administrators Deloitte said we will also be commencing a sale and recapitalisation process in order to secure a new owner. And ProBuild's South African parent blamed the Australian government's hardline approach of managing COVID-19. This time last year, a $300 million bid by a Chinese company to buy ProBuild was vetoed by Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, citing national security concerns. Then the rising costs of labour and materials turned the business into a house of cards, and we're warned it won't be the last.
ProBuild really could just be the first major contractor, but contractors generally speaking are under significant pressure.
Tom Saker, 7 News.
COVID has also taken a toll on Qantas, with another $1 billion loss blamed on lockdowns, Omicron cases and the West Australian border closure. But it's hoping for a turnaround soon, offering employees free shares to help make it happen.
Qantas is hoping to finally leave COVID in its wake after 2 years of turbulence.
It has been honestly a real roller coaster ride.
And financially, it's all been down. The airline announcing a deficit of $1.28 billion, its fourth consecutive half-year loss.
We're probably the company that's been most impacted by COVID in Australia.
The pandemic has so far cost the airline $22 billion in lost revenue. And when flights briefly resumed last year,
Omicron hit, and Omicron's cost us $650 million.
Helped when state borders began to reopen, except for one, Fortress WA. It's cost Qantas $60 million and thousands of disappointed customers.
And I think people, once bitten, will be twice shy on that.
To help reward staff, a share scheme, 20,000 non-executive workers, a package worth $5,000 each, convertible to shares in August 2023 if targets are met. Not welcomed by Qantas ground staff, in court again today after their jobs were outsourced.
A further slap in the face for these 2,000 workers that are going through hell.
The Qantas boss says he's frustrated but not surprised by the losses. He says there was no guarantee the airline would even survive the pandemic, but still faces a long way back. Ticket sales for international flights have been hitting pre-COVID levels. Qantas says it's on track to soon reach 75% capacity. Chris Marr, 7 News.
Detectives in Melbourne are hunting a gang of clumsy firebugs targeting tobacco shops. Already they've caused $4 million in damage across town, even setting themselves on fire twice. Police will be looking to identify injuries sustained in the criminal acts and believe they are linked to one crime gang. Western Sydney is about to receive a major cash injection, with the first instalment of the West Invest funding being poured into battleground electorates. But questions have now been raised as to where the money will come from and whether the funds are even available.
For almost 50 years, George and Ron have wanted Penrith's High Street to undergo a makeover.
It's never improved any, it's never gone anywhere.
That could now change.
We want Western Sydney to be the best place to live, to work, to run a business, to raise a family.
A key election battleground, the Premier dishing out $400 million of the $5 billion promised to improve communities in the west and southwest.
Well deserved. Penrith really needs the money. Thank you very much, Government.
Called West Invest, 15 councils are eligible for funding, including Blacktown, Liverpool, the Blue Mountains, Campbelltown and Penrith.
It's a project which has the potential to transform the face of Western and southwestern Sydney, suburbs badly affected by lockdowns. But just where the money is coming from is still unclear.
The West Connects transaction alleviated $5 billion, which we have been able to give back.
Not exactly. 7 News understands just $800 million is currently available. The rest will have to be found elsewhere.
This is either going to be borrowed money or this is money that will come from even higher tolls that the people of Western Sydney are going to have to pay.
A price they can't afford to pay.
It has picked up, but it still has a long way to go.
Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
The British tabloids have dubbed them the Royal-style sisters. The Duchess of Cambridge has joined our own Crown Princess Mary in Copenhagen ahead of a royal celebration for another Queen and the chance to join forces with an old friend.
Born at opposite ends of the planet, two future queens stroll across Copenhagen's Amalienborg Palace Square. The Duchess of Cambridge and Tasmania's own Crown Princess Mary of Denmark. They have met before. Both once commoners, together they are the future of European royalty.
They both look very beautiful. They're both very strong and inspirational women.
We are proud to show her Copenhagen, so I think it's very nice.
Kate and Mary joined Danish Queen Margrethe, celebrating 50 years on the throne this year, her Golden Jubilee. The Duchess's two-day tour of Denmark focusing on domestic violence awareness and children. Kate's early childhood education campaign has gone global. She is having an impact. I love you, Kate said, before the kids taught her a thing or two about surviving in the Danish woods. The Duchess trying her hand at almost anything on this trip. Before a final farewell to her friend Mary, they'll no doubt meet again. Here at Windsor Castle, Queen Elizabeth has held firm on her commitment to speak to the British Prime Minister weekly, taking a phone call from Boris Johnson in the last 12 hours or so. It's a good sign that the Queen is making good on that commitment to carry out light duties as she continues to recover from COVID. We also know that Her Majesty was meant to host the in-person audience here, but that was cancelled soon after her diagnosis because it would, of course, have breached self-isolation rules here in England, which are actually being dropped from today. The Queen, though, still recovering. Mark.
To see her soon, Hugh. Thank you. A one-of-a-kind Holden is up for grabs. Just ahead, the ultimate survivor found hidden in a garage and never driven. Roll out the red carpet. Princess Anne set to make this a very royal Easter show. Could this be your last day at work? What you need to know just hours out from a record Powerball draw.
Soon in sport, the foul-mouthed and violent outburst that has one of the world's biggest tennis stars facing huge penalties.
And showers and storms are on the radar again tonight. I'll have all the latest warnings soon.
Checking the markets now, and the ASX 200 plummeted 215 points today. The vast majority of Aussie stocks fell. Energy and resources were some of the worst hit. Qantas also dropped after it revealed those major losses. And our dollar is buying 71.74 US cents. Sydney's Easter show really will be royal this year, with confirmation Princess Anne will be opening the event at Olympic Park. The Queen's daughter is making the trip to celebrate the Royal Agricultural Society's bicentenary. The show begins on the 8th of April and runs until the 19th. It's a COVID-safe event with a daily cap of 80,000 tickets available online. A major gastro outbreak is sweeping childcare centres across the state. Almost 1,000 children and 200 staff have been struck down. That's a 97% increase on normal numbers for February. Parents are being urged to keep children at home if they're unwell. Symptoms include vomiting, diarrhoea and fever. A unique piece of Aussie motoring history goes to auction this weekend. It's a 1979 VH Holden. Most of them are junk by now, but this is the only surviving factory prototype, a full-sized hand-built model where even the front grille is carved from wood.
At a glance, this might look like any old Holden Commodore, but a closer look reveals it's one of a kind.
It's one of the rarest barn finds ever to be surfaced here in Australia.
It's being described as an ultimate survivor, built as a prototype for the SLE Commodore in 1979, the only one in existence.
This was built before the VH SLE came out, and you can actually see by inspecting the vehicle there's parts that are in there, such as the radio, that aren't actually real. If you took it out, it's just a mock-up.
It was recently discovered hidden in a garage underneath a dust sheet in country Victoria in near perfect condition. The front grille is hand carved from wood. There are even pieces of modelling clay still sitting in the boot.
And they've been left here since the vehicle was created nearly 40 years ago.
Catching the attention of motoring enthusiasts around Australia.
I love the history and the provenance of it more than the car itself, I think.
Test drives are definitely out of the question. While its engine is believed to be fully functional, this car has never been started before, let alone driven.
I think the minute it's driven, it's ruined.
It'll go under the hammer this Saturday at Lloyd's Auctions and is expected to sell for well into six figures. Christy Cooper, 7 News.
How does suddenly becoming $120 million richer sound? That could be one of us in just a couple of hours with tonight's record Powerball jackpot, the tips for turning even small wins into big money and your chances of claiming it all. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But now it's nice to welcome Mel inside for sport. For a change, Mel, the Panthers are primed for their premiership defence.
It's a bit warmer. Yes, thanks, Fergo. Great to be here. And yes, they are oozing confidence, but Nathan Cleary's no certainty to line up against the Sea Eagles in round one. We'll hear from Penrith's premiership captain next. Plus, as if they didn't have enough weapons already, we meet Manly's newest speed demon, who might just be the fastest of them all. And find out what punishments lay in store for Alexander Zverev for that shocking outburst in Mexico. Welcome back. Panthers superstar Nathan Cleary says he's on track to tackle Tommy Turbo's Sea Eagles in round one, but the big test is still to come. The premiership co-captain has to see if his surgically repaired shoulder can withstand full contact training.
Manly fans, focus. Jerome Luai may have let the cat out of the bag with Nathan Cleary's availability for the season opener.
We're not looking after him on the field as much, so that's probably good signs for him and our team.
It's still just progression through the stages, hoping to be out there for round one. I think probably the biggest thing is just having confidence in it. Definitely don't want to be putting myself out there too early.
He's only just started moderate contact after shoulder surgery in October to repair an injury suffered during the Origin series.
I've still got, two weeks to go, so they're obviously an important 2 weeks. And again, just kind of trying to go through the process at the moment. It's feeling pretty good.
Should Cleary need an extra week, Luai will reunite with former teammate Sean O'Sullivan.
We've got a bit of history together already, so I played a bit of footy with Sean in high school.
I left here when I was 17 to go to the Roosters, and coming back, I feel like I've never left, with the group of boys that we have here.
He's a real student of the game, so he's picked up our style of footy really quickly.
They've obviously had 2 successful years, and last year they won the comp, so just being able to come into this team and being able to pick the brains of 2 of the best halves in the comp was just something that I couldn't pass up.
Jerome's premiership high continued well into the off-season. His first daughter arrived and changed his world.
My little princess Akira is with us. She was born November after our grand final. It's definitely kept me off the video games and that. She's definitely captured my heart a bit, so yeah, she's awesome.
Michelle Bishop, 7 News.
Manly may boast the NRL's fastest player. 19-year-old Tolu Kula debuted last week against the Tigers and will play centre in tomorrow night's trial against the Raiders. Kula has been clocked over 100 metres in just 10.58 seconds. Teammates teasing he's way faster than Ruben Garrick.
Plenty of fast lads at the club.
Not Ruben, definitely not Ruben.
To be honest, I haven't seen anyone faster on a rugby league field than Salby. It's crazy what he can do.
With Tolu, Jason Saar, Tommy Turbo Trbojevic, and of course Garrick, the Eagles may be the NRL's fastest team. Frightening. Liverpool is now within 3 points of Premier League leaders Manchester City. The Reds crushed a hapless Leeds United 6-0 at Anfield this morning. It is their 9th straight win across all competitions. In a bid to repeat their breakthrough success in the Big Smoke, a couple of supercar underdogs have gone bush. Will Brown and Brodie Kostecki have been testing for Team Erebus in heatwave conditions at regional Victoria's Winton Raceway. Brown back from what he calls a casual off-season.
You know, did a fair bit of water skiing, a fair bit of training, caught COVID, which was fantastic, good bit of training there.
Brown scored his first win at Eastern Creek, the venue for the opening round next weekend. Pressure is mounting on the ATP to hit Alexander Zverev with a lengthy ban for the violent outburst that got him kicked out of the Mexico Open. The world number 3 smashed the umpire's chair with his racket several times after a doubles defeat.
The language was bad enough. What followed was unacceptable. And he wasn't done yet. Fans clamoured for a memento of the outburst that saw Alexander Zverev kicked out of the Mexico Open. Not a good look for someone previously accused of domestic violence. The condemnation from peers was swift. From Andy Murray, it was dangerous, reckless. Even Novak Djokovic, who has defaulted from the 2020 US Open for whacking a ball in frustration that hit a lineswoman, backed the call to expel Zverev, saying, "I understand what the player is going through, but of course I do not justify his actions." The German issued an apology on social media, describing his behaviour as wrong and unacceptable, but it's unlikely to save him from a lengthy suspension. Nick Markham, 7 News.
Pretty disgusting. Hopefully he's in a fair bit of trouble and out for a long time.
It was a shocker, Mel.
It was. Also, don't like the rain to come home to. I'm going to have a word to Angie. It's
All
very
right,
cold.
you do that. Thank you. Powerball jackpots to $120 million tonight, but be warned, you're more likely to be struck by lightning multiple times than win the lot. If you do happen to hold the winning ticket and take home all that prize money, one thing is certain, your life will never be the same again.
Hopeful millionaires dreaming of getting lucky.
Sir, is that the winning ticket today?
Oh, gee, I hope so.
Almost half the country is expected to be in the running for tonight's $120 million Powerball jackpot.
Here's a winning ticket.
If one person takes home that entire $120 million Powerball prize, then they will become Australia's biggest individual lottery winner.
I think I dropped dead on the spot. Was shocked.
But how would you spend it?
A house, a good life.
Hopefully the big one's going to drop and I won't have to work anymore.
Days could be spent sunbaking on one of these.
It's worth $10 million, so if you win tonight, you could buy 12 of them.
But if boats aren't for you, there's plenty of bling to choose from. This 7-carat diamond ring will only set you back $1.5 million. Looks pretty good.
But if you're sensible and invest, you could have another big win.
If you're getting 7% per annum, your money doubles in 10 years.
The odds of winning 1 in 134 million.
If this is the only week you buy a ticket and it's for a bit of fun, yes. But if you're actually trying to make money, forget it.
The jackpot is up for grabs at 8:30 tonight. Natasha Squarey, 7 News.
Good luck. Now Angie's back with a forecast. Ange, grey skies to finish off the working week tomorrow.
Mark, that trend looks set to roll right on into the weekend as well. Your detailed local forecast is next.
Hello, Ukraine wakes up to war. Tonight, the invasion is changing by the minute. We're across every development this evening. Live coverage from our teams on the ground. Explosions rocking major cities and missiles launched and counterstrikes expected. Hope you can join me for regular breaking developments as they happen tonight. Full coverage, of course, the latest from 7 News at 11.
Tonight's 7 News headlines. Russia and Ukraine are now engaged in all-out war. Vladimir Putin gave the orders to invade just hours ago. Already, Russian missile strikes have been confirmed, with Ukraine claiming to have shot down enemy aircraft. And cricket legend Rod Marsh is in a critical condition in hospital after suffering a major heart attack this morning. Now here's Angie with Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Mark. A lot of cloud and very little sunshine once again today. Days now of persistent rain has pushed Sydney over the line for our wettest summer in 3 decades. It was hot and humid with all those showers. About 27.9 degrees was the top in the CBD. High 20s the trend for most suburbs. Penrith and Richmond even made it to 29, 23 for Katoomba. Now, rainfall totals around Sydney have been lighter today, generally up to 10 millimetres. 26 millimetres was the top metro total, and that was at Camden. Zooming out to the statewide picture, that storm warning zone covers a huge portion of the state right now. The northeast corner, though, is where we are seeing flooding rain, 100 millimetres plus already. Tomorrow, a persistent stream of moisture just keeps feeding into a slow-moving low-pressure trough, so no change to that pattern for quite some time. So more wet weather is staying put for now. Around the nation, Brisbane, another deluge, more than 100 millimetres forecast tomorrow. Canberra, showers increasing, 20 millimetres or so. It'll be overcast for Melbourne and Hobart, not too much rain. Adelaide looking much brighter in comparison, fine, 29 degrees. Perth staying hot, 34, and a stormy 30 for Darwin. Back home, showers in the east, possibly heavy, mainly the northeast, though, 50 to 100 millimetres forecast again. Shower or two west of the ranges as well. And once again, the chance of those storms possibly severe. Daytime temperatures generally near average under all that cloud. The metro region will see another cloudy day tomorrow as well. More showers, not overly heavy though, probably 10 to 20 millimetres, and temperatures hovering around the mid-20s, which is a fair bit below average, especially for our west. On the water, northeasterly winds will run at 15 to 20 knots, tending easterly by early afternoon, 10 to 15 knots. For the CBD, another humid night, 21 degrees with more showers and storms, 27 tomorrow with that continued wet weather. To the week ahead, the showers intensify on Saturday with heavier totals likely, similar fall Sunday. All that wet weather remains very consistent. Temperature range, though, with tops in the high 20s each day. This time next week looking a little bit better, so not too far away, Mark.
Only a week away, Ange.
That's
Thank
right.
you. That is 7 News for this Thursday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. I'm Mark Ferguson from all the team. I hope you have a great night.